It wasn't just a casual suggestion, it was a majority decision to compel me. Brian, my husband, quietly nodded and said, "Then how about we cast our votes on something else?" I remember the moment clearly. Everything seemed to shift. The room fell into an eerie quiet, and I knew things were about to change forever. This all took place a year ago. I had been with Brian for a long time, and when we first got together, I thought I understood what loyalty meant. I believed that family wasn't just about blood. It was about standing by each other, no matter the circumstances. I never imagined that I would be in this situation, where loyalty was being tested in ways I didn't expect. I live in a small village in the Finger Lakes state, a tight-knit community where families gather regularly, usually on Sundays. The Bryan family is enormous, and there's always a big family dinner. From the moment I joined, I made an effort to fit in. I showed up, helped with the dishes, smiled, and tried to play nice. But despite my best efforts, I was never fully embraced by his family. They were polite, but I could always sense a barrier, an unspoken distance. I'd find myself on the outside, like when everyone shared a private joke I didn't understand. Still, I loved Brian deeply, and I believed that love was enough to make things work, to bridge those gaps. I thought that family was something we could build together. But then, things got complicated when Brian's younger brother, Ryan, hit a financial crisis. Ryan has always been the type to take risks. He's one of those people who constantly chases the next big thing. From Bitcoin to dropshipping empires, he's always been on the lookout for a quick way to make it big. But no matter what he tried, he always ended up failing. His family had long given up on him too. Everyone knew he was ambitious, but his constant failures made it hard for anyone to take him seriously. This time, though, Ryan came to me with a sob story he needed $18,000 for a short period of time. I told him no, calmly and kindly, explaining that our funds were tied up in property maintenance and that I couldn't take the risk. I told him I couldn't loan him money, not after everything he'd been through. He didn't argue, just nodded and left. But a few days later, I got an invitation to a family gathering. When I walked in, the atmosphere was tense. Everyone was there except Ryan. They were all talking, discussing what they would do about his situation. That's when the vote came up. They wanted me to lend Ryan the money, even though I had already said no. I stayed quiet at first, unsure of how to react. It felt wrong. They wanted me to ignore my instincts and do something that didn't feel right, just to help Ryan out of his latest mess. The conversation went on, and I listened as Brian's family argued about what to do. His father seemed adamant that helping Ryan was the right thing to do. His mother echoed the sentiment, and even Brian didn't speak up in my defense. I felt my stomach tighten. My refusal to help was being treated as some kind of betrayal, something I couldn't easily undo. It felt like they were pressuring me into making a decision I wasn't comfortable with. Then Brian spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Why don't we all vote on it?" he suggested. "Let's see where everyone stands." I looked at him, bewildered. He was part of this too. How could he let his family pressure me like this? I wasn't given a choice. They decided that a family vote was the fairest way to decide the issue. I couldn't believe it. My husband, my partner, had let this go so far. I could feel the walls closing in. I was trapped in a situation that felt increasingly foreign to me, as if I had entered some kind of twisted family business deal instead of a supportive marriage. This wasn't how I imagined family or love to work. This wasn't loyalty. When it was time to vote, I stood still, my heart pounding. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I couldn't just let this happen. I knew they were all watching me, waiting for me to cave. But I didn't. Instead, I spoke up, my voice barely above a whisper. "Okay, let's vote on something else now." The words hung in the air, and for a split second, everything seemed to freeze. There was a stunned silence. No one said a word. I held my breath, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they would listen to me. Brian's mother looked confused, and his father's brow furrowed, but no one challenged me. The pressure was mounting, but I refused to be coerced into something I didn't believe in. I reached into my bag, pulled out a manila envelope, and slid it across the table to Brian. His father glanced at it, looking puzzled. "What's this?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. I just sat there, staring at them all. The tension in the room grew thicker. "It's a copy of the title for the house that Brian and I own," I said. "It's the property we live in, and it's only in my name." I could feel the shock ripple through the family. They had no idea what I was getting at, and I wasn't about to explain it right away. I wasn't just playing games. I was making a statement. This house, this home that we had built together, was something that was mine to protect. I pulled out another piece of paper, a prenuptial agreement amendment I had drafted. I had done it quietly, without Brian's knowledge, because I knew I needed to protect myself from a family that didn't respect my boundaries. "Since you all enjoy voting," I said, "I thought I should make sure that my assets are separate from Brian's. I've made sure everything is clear." I placed the papers on the table for everyone to see. The silence was deafening. Brian's mother looked like she had just bitten into a lemon. His sister, Morgan, went pale, and his father's face turned bright red. No one spoke. Everyone was stunned, and I could see them all processing what I had just done. The power had shifted, but it wasn't over yet. A few moments later, Ryan walked in, acting like nothing had changed. He strolled into the room, wearing that charming, smirking expression that always made me uneasy. He apologized for being late and casually sat down at the table. I couldn't believe it. The person who had started all of this chaos was acting as if nothing had happened, as if he was entitled to whatever he wanted. "What did I miss?" Ryan asked, grinning. No one answered him. It was as though the whole room was holding its breath. Then, finally, his mother cleared her throat. "We were discussing some decisions," she said, her voice tight. I turned to Ryan, my heart heavy. "I told them no," I said, making sure he understood. Ryan tilted his head, as if he hadn't quite processed what had just happened. "Yeah, and we voted," I added, just a bit smugly. Ryan's smile faltered. He could see it now. The prenup, the changes I had made. He didn't know what hit him, and for the first time, he was speechless. Ryan's face twisted in confusion as he processed what I had just said. His usual cocky demeanor faded for a moment, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. I could see his mind racing, trying to figure out where he had gone wrong, trying to piece together what was happening. He had no idea about the prenup amendment. He didn't even know I'd been making these preparations. For a few seconds, the room was quiet. Brian didn't say anything. His silence was deafening, and it felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. His father's hand rested on the table, his knuckles white, and his mother was frozen, her eyes wide with shock. No one knew how to react to what I had just done. Then, Ryan finally spoke, his voice tight with frustration. "What's this about?" he asked, his usual confidence gone. "What the hell is going on?" I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch. It felt good to have the upper hand for once. I wasn't just going to sit there and let them walk all over me. Not anymore. I had been too quiet for too long. Brian shifted in his seat, his face pale, his mouth set in a grim line. He looked like he was about to speak, but before he could, I cut him off. "Why don't you ask your brother?" I said, turning my gaze to Ryan. "He seems to be the one who started all this." Ryan scowled, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, started all this?" "I'm just asking for some help. What's the big deal?" "The big deal," I said slowly, my voice steady, is that you've been using everyone for your own gain. You've borrowed money from people who trusted you, and you've made promises you never intended to keep. And now you want me to just hand over more money without any questions? Ryan shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. I'm not asking you to give me money for nothing. I'm just asking for a little bit of help until I can get back on my feet. I shook my head. That's not how this works, Ryan. You don't get to keep making bad decisions and expect everyone else to clean up your mess. You don't get to take advantage of my trust just because you think you're entitled to it. The tension in the room was palpable now. Everyone was watching, and it felt like all eyes were on me. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I wasn't backing down. Brian's father finally spoke, his voice loud and angry. This isn't the way a family operates. We help each other out. We don't make legal threats and start dividing assets. You're causing a scene, and it's not right. I met his gaze, my own expression calm. I'm not the one causing a scene. I'm just making sure that I'm protected. It's clear that no one else is looking out for me, so I have to do it myself. Ryan, still reeling from the shock of the prenup, stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You've gone too far this time, he spat, his voice dripping with anger. You think you can just manipulate everyone into doing what you want? You think you're in charge now? I stood up as well, meeting his challenge. I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm just standing up for myself. Something none of you have bothered to do for me. Ryan's eyes narrowed as he took a step toward me. But before he could say anything more, Brian finally spoke. His voice was soft, but I could hear the frustration in it. Stop, Brian said, his eyes darting between me and his brother. Just stop. Ryan glared at him. What? You're going to take her side now? He asked, his voice dripping with disbelief. No, Brian said, his voice firm but weary. I'm not taking sides. I'm just tired of this. Tired of all of it. I could feel the weight of Brian's words settle over the room. He wasn't just talking about the argument. He was talking about everything. The lies, the manipulation, the constant pushing and pulling. It had all been building up to this moment. Ryan didn't speak for a long time. He just stared at Brian, his jaw clenched. The silence stretched on, and I could feel the tension growing thick in the air. It was clear that this was a turning point. Something was about to break, and I wasn't sure if it would be Ryan, Brian, or me. Then, unexpectedly, Ryan turned and stormed out of the room. His footsteps echoed through the house as he slammed the door behind him. The silence that followed felt deafening. I didn't know what to do next. I stood there, unsure of whether to be relieved or disappointed. It felt like a moment of victory, but it was bittersweet. This wasn't how I wanted things to go. I didn't want to be at odds with Brian's family. I just wanted respect. I wanted them to see me as more than just an outsider. Brian was the first to speak after Ryan left. I didn't know about the prenup change, he said, his voice quiet. I swear, I didn't. I didn't respond immediately. I was still processing everything that had happened. I had made my stand, but I wasn't sure what came next. It doesn't matter, I said finally. What matters is that we're finally addressing things. It's long overdue. Brian nodded slowly, his eyes filled with regret. I don't know how things got this far, he admitted. I never meant for it to get this bad. I sighed, trying to collect my thoughts. Neither did I. But here we are. For a moment, we both stood there, caught in the aftermath of everything that had just happened. I wasn't sure if things would ever go back to normal. The damage had been done, and there was no taking it back. Then, in the distance, I heard the sound of a door opening. I turned to see Ryan re-entering the room, his face flushed with anger. You think you've won? He sneered. You think you've got the upper hand? Well, you're wrong. You've just made a huge mistake. I felt my heart race as he approached. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Ryan's words hung in the air like a challenge. He was furious, and I could feel the anger radiating from him. His eyes were sharp, cold, and I could tell that this wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about something deeper, something personal. You really think you can control everything? Ryan spat, his voice full of venom. You think you've got it all figured out? You're just like everyone else, trying to play the hero, trying to make me the villain. I stood my ground, trying not to let his words affect me. I'm not trying to control anything, I said firmly. I'm just trying to protect myself from the mess you've created. I've given you chances before, Ryan. I've tried to help, but I can't keep cleaning up after you. Ryan clenched his fists, his jaw tight. You've never understood, have you? You've always looked down on me, like I'm just some screw-up. Well, I'm done. I'm done with all of this. I felt a wave of frustration rise up inside me. It was hard to stay calm when everything around me felt like it was falling apart, but I had to keep my composure. I had to stay focused on what mattered, protecting myself and my future. You don't get it, Ryan, I said, my voice soft but resolute. This isn't about looking down on you. It's about realizing that you're never going to change if you keep relying on everyone else to bail you out. You need to take responsibility for your own actions. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he glared at me as if he were trying to figure out how to make me regret everything I'd just said. But I wasn't going to back down. Not this time. The room was thick with tension. I could feel Brian standing beside me, but he hadn't said anything since Ryan came back in. It was as if he was waiting for the storm to pass, hoping that somehow everything would settle down on its own. But I knew better than that. This wasn't something that was going to fix itself. It had to be confronted head on. Ryan took a step forward, his voice low and menacing. You think you're the only one who's been screwed over? You think you're the only one who's been betrayed? You have no idea what it's like to be in my shoes. I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was quickly replaced by irritation. Ryan's problems weren't just about him anymore. He had dragged everyone else into his chaos, and I wasn't willing to let that continue. I'm sorry for what you've been through, Ryan, I said, trying to keep my tone steady. But that doesn't give you the right to drag me down with you. I've worked hard for what I have, and I'm not going to let you take it away from me. Ryan stared at me for a long moment, his eyes dark with anger. Then, with a frustrated growl, he turned and stormed out of the room again, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed through the house, a final punctuation to the escalating drama. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. My heart was pounding, but I refused to let it show. This was the moment where everything would change. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about standing up for myself, about not letting anyone walk all over me. Brian finally spoke after Ryan left. His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. I didn't know it was this bad, you know? I didn't know he'd taken things this far. I turned to face him, my eyes tired, but steady. I know you didn't, but it's been building up for a long time, Brian. I've been trying to protect us, protect our life together, and I've been doing it quietly, behind the scenes. But I can't keep doing that. Not anymore. Brian sighed deeply, his shoulders slumping. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to stop him. I didn't know how to stand up to my family. I shook my head. It's not just about standing up to them, Brian. It's about standing up for us. You've let them push me aside for so long, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being the outsider in my own marriage. He looked at me, his expression pained. I never meant to make you feel like that. I swear I didn't. I've always been caught in the middle, caught between you and my family. and I didn't know how to make it stop. I need you to stand by me. I need you to be my partner. Brian didn't answer right away. He just stood there, looking at me, as if he were weighing everything I had just said. Then, slowly, he nodded. I'll stand by you. I will. I just need time to figure things out. I need to figure out how to fix this. I smiled, though it felt bittersweet. We'll figure it out together, Brian. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But something in the back of my mind told me that this was far from over. There were still secrets to uncover, still lies to expose, and I wasn't going to stop until I had the truth. Later that night, after the dust had settled, I received a message from Morgan. She wanted to talk. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I agreed to meet her the next day. I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went, but I was about to find out. The next morning, I met Morgan at a small coffee shop in town. She seemed calm, but there was an intensity in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. We sat down at a corner table, and she wasted no time getting to the point. You were right about Brian, she said quietly. And you were right about Ryan. They've been hiding things from you, things you need to know. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't over. Far from it, Morgan continued. Ryan's failed ventures weren't just his fault. I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. I had no idea where this was going, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. It was a battle for my future. This story highlights the importance of standing up for oneself and protecting what matters most, even when faced with pressure from family and loved ones. It shows us how difficult it can be to make tough decisions that affect not only our financial well-being, but our emotional and mental peace. The key life lesson here is that loyalty to others should never come at the expense of our self-respect or values. For many of us, especially as we age, we may find ourselves navigating complex family dynamics, whether it's standing firm in our beliefs, asserting our boundaries, or protecting our hard-earned assets. This story reminds us that we must prioritize our well-being and self-worth. We don't always have to please everyone or give in to the demands of others, especially when it goes against our instincts. Life is about finding balance, being true to ourselves, and making choices that honor our integrity. As you reflect on this story, ask yourself, when was the last time you had to make a difficult decision to protect your own peace and values? How can you ensure that you continue to stand up for yourself, even when others may not understand? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below.